So I spent 31 years here. And I love to give tours, love to talk about the building. I love being a pastor. You know, if I take it off, then I can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm in so much in the habit of putting my mask back. I was president of the Neighborhood Association here for 25 years, and I love doing that. I just love being here, not only because it was a beautiful church, but a great congregation and just a great community. So, we don't know exactly why St. Mark's, we have no idea why Sperry was chosen, but we had a very wealthy member here named Waldo Newcomer. He was a member of the old church downtown. And he owned the old, you know what's now we call the Maryland National Bank building at Light and Baltimore Street? Is that right? Well, that was his bank. It was the old Baltimore Trust Company. That was his bank. He was rich. And the story is that he said if they would build a church in this style, he would pay for the interior design. He had just come from a trip around the world in the 1890s, I believe, and so was impressed with what he saw. So it's patterned after a church somewhere in Italy, where they have a lot of stuff like this. So, and they engaged the Tiffany Studios to decorate. And basically what you're seeing is an original building. So even the carpet is a replica of the first carpet. There have been many carpets, but I found a piece of this carpet upstairs in the room one time, and pretty much figured out. We don't know if Tiffany designed the carpet, but it's what was here. So when the people walked in, what they saw, the font is not here, you see, but what they saw what you're seeing today. Everything's still in place. So, except those windows. So in 1898, the pews were here. That Tiffany window up there was here. Unfortunately, we've always had a problem, and it's just getting worse with water damage, so I think there's a plan to try to address that. The windows in the clear story are original. And the window in the back, the circular window, that is not the Gothic churches have rose windows. That is not a rose window. Basically, Romanesque, you have what's called a circular window. And that represents Christ and the 12 apostles. And we talked earlier about the whole thing with electricity being new. When this church was built, it was lighted with gas and electric, because they weren't quite sure about this new stuff. They knew gas worked. So the only thing that's left now from that are the sconces on the wall. And so what's now turned down probably was turned, I don't know, somebody think they might have been turned the other way for the gas, I don't know. But, so those sconces are 1898. And then what they had up here, and there's a book up on the table out there that some of you looked at. They had a combination of gas and electric across the top, and then around the columns, there were gas jets coming out. If those of you who come back into the hall later, there's a painting that was done probably at least before 1920. They used to bring students over from the art school to do painting classes here. And years ago, someone gave this painting that a relative, but we know it's before 1920 because it still had the original organ in place, and these windows were not in. So what happened when the congregation moved here? They brought an organ with them from the old church, and so that's obviously gone. But all these things are, and the Schuller plaque is later. You know about the Schuller's art studio? Schuller did the big statue of Martin Luther that's over by Lake Montebello, and the studio still exists on Landvale between Charles and St. Paul, and they still do classes there. They're great people.
He also did the Pulaski Monument in Patterson Park.
That's right, yeah.
And Zion has a number of his works in the garden.
A lot of churches have Schuller plaques. Lovely Lane's full of them. They did that to honor pastors and stuff. So we have that. And in fact, I talked with one of the Schullers, and I think they still have the drawing for that. They've saved everything. And then the other thing that happened, when the church was built, there was a painting up here above the cross to look like a mosaic. And then this Waldo newcomer, this rich man, his wife died. She was a member of Old St. Paul's downtown. So what he did, he had a mosaic put in down there, which is bigger and grander because the altar area is different, and had a real mosaic put in up here. So it's not original, but it looks like the painting that was there. And the other thing that happened when this church was built, and I had a member here, died a few years ago. She was born in 1918. Do any of you know the guy who used to be a sportscaster named Chris Ely? Okay, well, Chris Ely's mother grew up in this church. She was born in 1918. She was baptized, confirmed, married, and buried from this place. And she remembered as a little girl when these panels were painted gold. Apparently people complained about the red. And I have a theory. Red is a color of passion. And Lutherans don't deal with passion too well. We are a little more conservative. But I think it works. But so sometime, and she said she might have been about 6 or 7. So sometime, maybe say the mid-20s, these were painted. So she always called this Byzantine gold. So, yes, sir.
The pipes right there, I think, came from the original organ.
Those pipes, I don't know if they came from the old church, but they were put in when the church was built. Because what happened, the organ down there, I think in the old building was in a balcony, if I remember. So, but they are original. And then there's some of the pipes on the front are still from the old organ as well. So they're not all, but what year did we have this new one put in? Sometime. So what happened in 1898, the tracker organ was against the wall, and there was a platform with a curtain. Quartets were a big thing in those days. They didn't have big choirs, and so they always had 4 paid singers, even downtown. So this thing was designed for 4 singers. Then in 1920, they got a new organ, a Moeller organ. And they had a new organist named Johann Eltermann, John Eltermann, who we knew. In fact, his funeral was held here, even though he left years ago. And he wanted a choir. So Joseph Evans Sperry was still living. So he and Dr. Eltermann designed a choir loft. And it came out about right here. This is the wall. It came straight out, and you get like about 16 people, I guess, or so. So then they started having a choir. So that was changed. And then I don't know how many years ago after Jimmy Harp came, we made it even bigger. And then we got the new organ. The organ used to sit right here. This is on the chord, so it can go over there or over here. So what they had, the organ is gone, but all the other furnishings are still here.
Dale, excuse me, can you address the symbolism?
Yep, we're going to do that.
Okay.
Yep. So, that's right. When you look around, the place is loaded with symbols. And there's one particular thing that you see a lot of. Crosses. Well, you know that, Brad. Yes. And the artist for this building was a Frenchman named René de Quelan. He was one of the chief artists for the Tiffany studio at the time. He had different people. So he designed the interior. And I was talking about the windows on the side are not original, but when you look under the balcony, what we had were just bigger versions of that. And we still have 4 of the panels in the basement. And that's what we call stock Tiffany. It's not colored glass like we have here. But most churches, when they're built, don't have money for this kind of thing. They usually just have plain glass or simple things. Then the stained glass windows oftentimes come in later. But I'll get to those shortly. Oh, by the way, the builder of this building was the Henry Smith and Sons. They were a very prominent building firm. They built the Lyric Theater, the U.S. Customs House, and I had a couple more which have slipped my memory. And his, the Smith family lived over near Patterson Park, and then sometime after St. Mark's was built, they had gone to a Lutheran church on Broadway called St. Mark's at Broadway and Fairmont, which is now closed. They built the apartment building at St. Paul and Chase. When you're going down St. Paul Street, there's Christ Episcopal on the right, and then across the street this big apartment house, a catty corner from that other one. I forgot the name. The family lived there. That was the family compound. And they joined this church. And Henry Smith's daughter was here I did her funeral. She was absolutely wonderful. So they had a long history here as well, not like building it, just they were building it. So what happens, we have all these emblems up here. The Lamb of God. What I could do, rather than bore you with everything, the anchor is another symbol of the church. What we like to point out, I don't see how well you can see it, but inside that wreath up there is this whole thing which defines the Trinity. And how many of you have ever used the Athanasian Creed? People at St. Mark's do. We call it the Euthanasian Creed, because by the time you're done with it, you think, oh my God, do we really have to believe all this? But it defines God. God is not the Son, God is the Son. It goes through all this stuff, and we can get it closer. But it's interesting that appeared in here, because that's not something that, even though Luther retained the Athanasian Creed, most Lutherans never even dealt with it, so we find that very interesting. When I came here, that wreath was dirty. So we didn't know there was that colored glass in there. So it turned out really, really nice. By the way, the mosaic came in sometime in the 20s. We're still not quite clear of the year. It's not on there. It just says in memory, but we don't have a date for that.
Bill, is that mosaic glass or is it stone?
Those are stones, or it might be glass, I think. And those stones in the middle are to look. They used to say they were uncut opals. They're not. They look like opals. No, that was a nice story people told, but they ain't. Which makes me feel better. Somebody came and pried them out. We wouldn't. The altar, pulpit, lectern, font were done by the J&R Lamb Company. Now, some churches did have Tiffany designed furnishings, but J&R Lamb Company still exists. They're in northern New Jersey, I believe, and they did really fine work, and Tiffany must have liked them, or he wouldn't have had this stuff in here. But we have mother of pearl inlay here, and this marble is no longer mine. It has a name. We call it blue cheese marble. It comes from Italy.
Rubio?
What is it?
King of Prussia marble.
Is that what it is?
Rubio?
Rubio. Is that it? Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
I'm thinking that was King of Prussia marble and the exterior is Port Deposit granite.
A lot of churches here have Port Deposit granite. Yeah. So, like for example, up here where you have there's a peacock up there. There he is. Here. The peacock, for example, years ago you saw all this stuff memorized, but I've lost that. Where is the peacock? I like that. That's why I can't find it. But there's Martin Luther's emblem there, the cross. What's better, I think, is for you to come up more closely, and I can be up here and tell you about those things. Yes, sir?
What is that that's hanging?
The lamp?
Yeah.
Well, the old tradition was that these hanging lamps, and that's new, that was put in 1960. when you would have the reserved sacrament in the church, the uneaten wafers and the undrunken wine, there was in Catholic Church you'll see like an aumbrey on the altar or somewhere. So that's what it was. So when the lamp was lit, you'll see, if you go to a Catholic church and there's no service going on, but they have, you oftentimes see people come in and they'll genuflect for it was because the sacrament was there, even after Mass. But Protestants thought they were nice things to have. And so they said, well, it just symbolizes the eternal presence. So that was put in 1960 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the founding of the congregation. And there were some people who had a fit, afraid they were going to get wax dropped on them, and there's all kinds of stuff. There were enough people here to tell me the stories about that. But what was that? About the lamp. They were afraid wax was going to come out. So what happened, when it was first put up, they had to get a ladder out to change the candle in there. And then years later, they were pulling. When you walk up here, you'll see. So now we have, here it is. My kids always loved this. When they were here, this reaches up. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll leave this down so you can see it better. Just be careful when you come up. But it really is quite beautiful. And it's lit. It shouldn't be lit, but it is, because the sacrament's not here yet. We're going back to our Protestant days, I guess. But it really is a beautiful piece of furnishing. One of the more elaborate ones, you'll see these mostly in Catholic churches like this, but it's rare to see this in any place else. So I'll put that back. But if you look around, for example, talk about the cross, there's we used to have, I should have planned these a little better. I had a flyer to give out, and it didn't work out. But in this building, across, let's see if it's in here. It's like over 1,000 crosses in a decorative scheme. And I'm not finding it. But there are crosses all here around. By the way, under the arches is, though it's painted to look like a mosaic. You see the little squares, so that's just paint. The columns start to represent the four gospel writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And people often ask, why is there no window over there? Well, there's a building there. Why did you close it up? Well, I didn't. There was never anything there. But those shapes match this over here. We had talked one time, this was years ago, because we still have two of the panels in the basement before, of maybe trying to figure out a way to put something up over there and light it, backlight it, but we never got around to it. So in 1960, they were getting ready to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the congregation, and they cleaned the building. They used kind of a putty. And you see these crosses up here, how some of the paint's removed. That's cool. When they rubbed the putty over, apparently some of the paint came off. But when you think about it, it's in pretty good shape since 1860. The columns have been repainted. We had one water problem up here. I think this ceiling is just spectacular. I used to come down here and lie down. And I told you I'm weird. I come in and lie down in the middle of the aisle and just look at the ceiling. I just love it. And the other thing was to come in and see this lunette window when you have a bright, sunny afternoon and the sun. That window just dances. And what I want to tell you about that, and you'll have to get closer, and I'll try to position you. In the center of those flowers are actually chunks of glass to give it depth. You don't normally see it, but you have to get a certain spot. I was told that Tiffany really liked the clematis vine, and it was used a lot. So that's what I was told. And of course, and then also in the arms of the cross, you can see that better. You'll see chunks of glass. And even over here in some of these windows. So the best thing to do when I'm done rambling here is take your time. 17 or 18 is this window put in. That's the only window that is not Tiffany. That was done by, what? Lauber. Just had a blank. Joseph Lauber. He was teaching at the Institute. So what I was told was that the original plan was that there was going to be a whole series of these. Here we have the Nativity and Jesus in the temple. We don't know what was next. Maybe ending up with the Ascension. Who knows? So this window was put in, and I had a member here who was a student of Joseph Lauber, and one of her classmates posed for the angel. And then the next donor came along and wanted Tiffany. So we got the Good Shepherd window, which I really like a lot. I think, for me personally, I think this window fits the building better. But I'm not regretting a Tiffany window. So the Good Shepherd window was next in 1920, I believe. And then 1932 is the resurrection window with Jesus and Mary Magdalene. And look at the red flowers next to her, how they just pop out. So when you go up there, get closer. And you know what's so interesting, there might be as many as 3 or 4, sometimes 4 or 4 layers of glass. So you have depth. Tiffany, their studio just did a wonderful job in creating this mottled glass and then layering it for depth. And these are some good examples. Years ago, there was a guy here from Boston. I don't know what he was doing. He came to Baltimore to see St. Michaelangelo, and they told him to come over here. Well, he did. He said, oh. And he just fell in love with it. And he said that the Good Shepherd window was a very popular theme for churches, for the studios. He thought this was one of the finest that he's ever seen. He says there are a lot of ugly ones out there. And it really is stunning. And that works really well early in the morning when the sun's coming. They really they come alive. The other thing that happened some years ago, we had to have this window taken out and have it repaired. So it was the first time that any of us had ever seen this building with natural light. It was amazing. The colors just changed. And so, and then another time we had to have all the clear story windows taken out. So we had scaffolding up, and they take 2 out at a time and move through, and then this side. So I'd always have some of the others turn off the lights, because I said, we will probably never see this again in our time. It may happen again, but to see natural light, and it was interesting just to look up there and see how the colors changed. But we don't think about that, because people never did see this in natural, because there were stained glass windows from the day they walked in here. So I think it would be, when you come up here, if you want to look closely at these symbols, I can tell you more about that. Yes, sir.
You mentioned so many crosses, but why are the crosses of equal length? You know, both the vertical and the
That's how the
horizontal.
artist did them. They're Greek and Latin crosses. They're different kinds of crosses.
I see.
And if I could find the right paper, I'll tell you that. Most of them are square, but then you see this is a different type of cross here. And then, yeah, one's Latin and one's Greek. I forgot which is which. If I could find the right reference. I always, on the vine is of course, very much of a Byzantine influence. And I've seen some other churches with the vine. I think ours is quite nice. Yeah. You see, yes, sir.
Just one thing about the vine. I think that was done freehand. There's one, it should be symmetrical from side to side. There's one place where it's not.
And he would find it. Do you know where it is?
Yeah.
Well, you can tell, people that want to know, you see him. Let's see.
Dale, did you want to talk about the attempt to whitewash the
Oh my God, yes. This was a disaster. Back in the 40s or 50s, when the Second English Lutheran Church was moved out to Baltimore National Pike as a Suedo Colonial on the side over there. It was very simple. And one of the members was so impressed that they thought they should paint out St. Mark's so it could have a simple interior. Well, that didn't set too well. Because we know we have an edifice complex here. And, so yeah, thank God that never happened. And somebody asked me about the word English. You did. For a long time, the Lutheran Church, of course, here was Zion and German. So what happened? There was a concern, and there were a number of Zion's the mother church, but there were other German-speaking churches here in Baltimore as well. But there was a concern by a lot of people that their children were now going to English-speaking churches like Methodist, Episcopal, Presbyterian. So there was this need, so I think it was 1814, First English Lutheran was started, which is now Charles XXXIX, to do the English. And so then all these other English churches that we had, First, Second, Third, St. Mark's, St. Paul's, Emmanuel, quite a few. And the reason it was in there was so people knew that it was in the English language because there were all these German Lutherans around. So it was very intentional. We dropped it. I read something the other day, and I think it might have been in the 20s when they dropped the term English here. But First English still has the title. Second English is now gone. Third English is gone. St. Paul's dropped it. I want to do one other.
How about J.R. Lamb?
What?
You didn't talk about that.
Yeah, the Lamb, I did. Yeah, the
You did?
furnishings.
Sorry,
Yeah.
must have been out.
But there's something here I like to tell you. Let's try to get this out. The other thing that I forgot to tell you, there was something new also in the 1890s. Air conditioning. We take it for granted now, don't we? When this church was built, it was air conditioned. So, you see these decorative grates? They served also for heat, but also for cool air. They had chambers in the basement, which have been some of them still there, and they would put big chunks of ice in there and turn fans on them to send cool air. Eventually they stopped that, and they had, you know how you used to go to buildings, see those big fans, they were big around like that. They used to have those sitting around. There were two around here when I first came, but so then in the 1960s, they put real air conditioning in. And so there are grates up here in the ceiling. They were to help to diffuse the cool air. There was a family here named Steib. They had a jewelry store on Utah, down near the Lexington Market. And Miss Marie Steib was one of the, how did I describe the architect? There was some rigidity there. She was quite a force. I did not know her. But anyhow, her brother died, and he had no children. He ran the jewelry store. She got quite a bit of money. So she goes to the pastor back in the 60s and said, is there something I could do for the church? He said, how about air conditioning? She goes, oh, fine. But I want it in by, say, June the 1st. But it was all in. They had to lift the units. They had got a crane out here on 20th Street, had to lift them up over the, people were so nervous that they dropped through the ceiling. But anyhow, everything was in, ready to go, except those grates were not ready. Well, here it's getting close to the 1st of June, and she was going to pay for this. And she ran a tight ship. I never knew, but I heard thousands of stories about her. So they sent this guy who's he was very, very nice. I knew him quite well. They thought he could be gentle. really, and he said, no, Miss Marie, and he would tell me the story. Everything is in. It's ready to go except the diffuser, those grates. He said, if we turn the air conditioner on without those, it's going to blow the women's hats off their heads. I don't know if that would have happened. That's what he told her. So she agreed, and a couple weeks later, these were put in, and then the air conditioners. So we went from ice in the basement It's the real thing. But you notice there's numbers on your pews. You know what they're for?
People bought them?
Huh?
Did people buy them?
Aha. So I always like to tell you how much it's going to cost you before you leave. We actually still have one chart that shows the Bowerschmidt Brewery, which was over on Gay Street. Well, Miss Marie Bowerschmidt was a member here, and I'd have to see if she's on that chart, but she had plenty of money. Okay, so let's see where we are here. We took some pews out, so your pew number 43. It's going to cost you $30 a year to sit just in this section right here. Yeah. Now the other side too. It's $30 for you. You too. Let's go with you. Let's see how much you're going to cost us here. 65. Oh, you're good. You're $50 a year. Good. See, Lutherans don't like it up front. You get better money in the middle. We like it in the middle. And one of these over here, and I'm just not sure which, is reserved for the pastor's family. Those pews on the side over there start at 20, 25, 30, and then 20 in the back. Let's see how much it's going to cost you guys. 47. You're up to $60. Bernie, I know you're loaded. Let's see what we've got here. $60. Yeah, you got to.
It's like a PSL.
Let's see.
How much do we owe?
Well, let's see. Well, I know these real estate agents make a lot of money. So number 71, yours is $60 as well. Now, if you sat over there, what's your pew number? You're 67. You're only $30. That's a better deal, isn't it? This guy's a little over here too. 45. You're $25. Now, what we did some years ago, in order to accommodate wheelchairs, we had these pews. Well, this pew was always short, but we had 4 pews cut down so that people in wheelchairs didn't have to sit way up front or in the back. They could be part of the congregation. So we made 4 seats, and then we took out pews. When we got the new organ, we took out pews to make this, like if we have instrumentalists and stuff, we can use that to make it a little more functional. So, did you find it, Richard? Yes. Yes, okay. I just missed it. Okay, we have here, well, I can tell you we have 40 Latin crosses, but I was wondering, they're called Latin or Roman. But then these Greek crosses, any idea? When you look around here, those are the ones that are equal. They're the ones you see everywhere. Anyone want to take a wild guess? Somebody had to count this somehow. It wasn't me.
2640.
2,511 Greek crosses. So it comes everywhere. Yeah. So it says, thus from every angle the sacred emblem meets the eyes of the worshiper. Those of you who are interested, when we come up front here, I can give you a little better. You'll see them better also because you're closer and I can tell you more about. But if you want to walk around, check the windows and look for the layers of glass. Oh, the other thing that Tiffany was big on was what's called drapery glass. So, he did not like to paint. One of his big things, the best windows are the ones that have not been painted. He did not like to paint glass. But if you want Jesus, you kind of pretty much paint his face. But look at the garments. When you go over there, turning the
I turned so you can see the ceiling better.
yeah, and then you can see the ceiling as well. But that was one of his big things with this drapery glass, so that you didn't have to paint the folds in the glass. And so those are really good examples of that. Yeah. Anybody else? And then I'll let you wonder. Yeah. So, okay, so you're going to walk around. If you have questions, I'll be up here. Take a look around. go over here to that window. Richard will be over there. Ralph is over there, and Paul's over there, and I'm here, and we're going to go upstairs too. Sunday school room. But there's a story about this. And there was a First Methodist Church in Akron, Ohio. Well, it was 1841. It was destroyed by fire. Well, does anyone know what was going on in the mid-1800s? It was extremely, a lot of growth
The Awakening,
at Sunday schools.
yeah.
Big thing. So you needed space for these Sunday schools. So that was one of their big needs. So they built, after the fire, they rebuilt and had a big roof. Now, there's two ways of looking at this. So eventually it was called the Akron Plan, because it came out of Akron, Ohio. And I've seen two variations on it. Sometimes this would have been the regular worship space. And then these were rooms for overflow or classes. This was never designed that way. This was strictly Sunday school. And down on the table where I was earlier, there's a picture in a book that's small, but it shows what this room looked like. There were chairs out here. They had a Sunday school orchestra. So you had your opening exercises, and then people were already in their classrooms all around. There was a big one. The room over here was the children. So they could put those doors down, the two top ones, so the kids would, but if you wanted to keep them quiet, just put the doors back up. You couldn't see them for their own class, but they could be a part of it. That's why that wall there to keep them from running around in here. There's a big room upstairs, and they're like steps up here, so they're gradated, so people, when they're not flat, that was another problem. What do you do with space like that? We had visions over the years that never happened. And if you had a big class, you see there's folding doors you can open. And some churches had doors. These had curtains, and I think we still have the curtain rods and rings in the basement somewhere, so you would close the curtains. This was a stained glass window up here, and they had a problem just recently, and so the window was taken down. When the church was built, there was like a greenhouse effect up there, and there were chains. You see those little rectangles all around the bottom? Well, those were air vents. So there were chains that came through and hung out here in the hallway. You could open these louvers on this greenhouse type thing to let fresh air in to help circulate. We had to have that taken out years ago to put these plastic domes, but something happened, and so they just recently took down the stained glass. Was just sort of like what you see in the window. It's just nondescript glass, but I don't know what's going to happen now. But they were leaking or something fell down or what. But anyhow, so this Akron Plan was a way to get a lot of people, technically, in not a real huge space. And if you look at it, I mean, it's big, but you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 classrooms. Plus what you had out here. And if they had overflows, they had to go elsewhere in the building. The room that we met in was called the lecture hall, and I was told that sometimes they had classes there too, like for adults, because Sunday school was a real big thing here. Probably like 800 people in Sunday school back in the 30s. It was big. So, yes, sir.
Just something interesting about when the building was built, there were only 2 bathrooms.
Right.
In the basement.
In the basement.
Very small bathroom. I mean, people then did not go to the bathroom.
Well, that's what I was
Outside of
told.
home.
I was told by one of the elderly ladies here that, we just didn't go. She didn't have coffee hour or something like that, and she said, we didn't do that kind of stuff in church, so we didn't have to go. But they were there if we really needed it, but it was not, it was just not the right thing to do. Right. So now we have restrooms up here. We did have, occasionally we had little Sunday school classes, and we it really, there's a congregation here now that's using it. So it's the first time in a long time that it's really getting regular use. And we've had theater groups in here over the years that have used it. So that, I'd say the last 10, 15 years it got more use than it did probably 20-some years. Ralph?
Can I add something? The Sunday school movement became very strong. And often it would be almost a separate
They
group.
were.
And this domain would be this domain of the Sunday school superintendent.
Yes.
He would reside up here. And the Sunday school often was quite independent. And there were often rivalries between how good the Sunday school superintendent servant was to the churches down there. And often they had their own separate treasurers.
Yes, we did here.
The Sunday school movement was very independent and strong. It was like two things in the same building.
So everybody, thanks again for coming. I'm sure Dale and the other attendants will be happy to answer questions. But please keep your eye out for the symposium. And we've got flyers downstairs.
Yes.
And you can register with Bonnie. But again, thanks to Dale for giving up his morning for us. And I'm sure if you have questions, just stick around.
Yes, have some cookies and coffee, and we can stay for a little